according to CM Jornal or Correio da Mahina, a Portuguese outlet, they have exclusively claimed that Liverpool are in a real race to sign Benfica's Darwin Nunez. Manchester United are also interested in the Uruguayan, but he has a €150 million release clause. However, it is thought that 100 mil would be enough to satisfy Benfica. Jack, that seems like a lot of money for somebody who is a very raw talent, I'd say.
That's exactly how I would put it as well. I mean, 100 million. We've Van Dijk, because I think it was the euros. It was the currency, if I'm not mistaken, Charlie. So Van Dijk got to similar numbers. Allison slightly pushes that. Who else have we signed? And those guys were the finished deal. We only spring that kind of cash when they are really able to kind of be there. I think Nunez has a really high ceiling. I think he could be very good, but he's not there right now. And I think that there are still major gaps in his game. He's young. It's fine. I'm not saying he's going to be a crap player, but I just think if you're going to be spending that kind of money at this point in Liverpool's trajectory, where you need to be challenging for trophies next season, replacing one of your starters in one of the best 11s in the world next season, it's a guy that's been in the chat. Lewandowski, I think, is a far better option, because I think you would get Lewandowski coming down from his peak. I think either of those two would be great, but you have Lewandowski coming down from his peak, Kane basically at his peak, versus Nunez, who's rising. Nunez would make sense if Mane was still here and he wasn't going to have to be a starter. I think whoever the forward signing is going to have to be a starter very, very often this coming season. And I just don't see Nunez as the guy who moves the needle. I think he's similar to Jota in the sense that his overall game has some gaps. It's inconsistent. He's a great finisher, can score goals, but I think we've seen that you need a dynamic forward. I think the only guy you could really kind of afford to concede the build-up and the pressing and the control was Erling Haaland, because he's just such a machine. But we didn't get Erling Haaland, obviously. I think that Nunez does not make sense for Liverpool or United. I think I'd be happy if United signed it, because they don't seem tailor-made for him, and he'd be kind of a poor signing. I think Nunez would be good under Klopp, but I just think that there are better options out there that are cheaper as well. I know it's not my money, but you have to factor in that the budget is probably 100 million this summer. I'd be stunned. I'd be pleasantly surprised if they spent more than 100 million net. So to blow that all on one guy, I don't know. I don't see it personally. I'm open to arguments, but for me, Charlie, it's not the right move.
Yeah, I think as well, I said he's so raw, and we saw with Luis Diaz that goals in the Premier League don't always transpire to goals in the Premier League. It's been Luis Diaz's main criticism, but he has been fantastic apart from that. But, even though he was great against us, Jay, as Jack said, we're not going to replace Mane with someone who needs to be taught the basics, are we? And I know who you're going to say who needs to replace him, a certain Christopher Nkunku. But, more on Nunez, it just doesn't seem like the right fit. It doesn't seem like the right time at the right price for Liverpool, does it?
If you look at the market, mate, I think 100 million for Nunez is poor. Like a really poor signing. Haaland was 75 mil. I know that was a release clause, but if you're comparing the two, Haaland's well ahead. He's got much more Champions League experience. He's been doing it in a more competitive league. And Nunez's numbers are impressive, but it's like you said, it's in Portugal. Portugal's not even in the top 5 leagues in Europe. It's a completely different ballgame. You can even put France above that, and I don't particularly rate the French league. So I think 100 million outlay for a player who's unproven, it'd be poor business on our part. And to be honest, the lad's got a terrible first touch, His first touch is like Lukaku's. And I just think for that money, you probably could get Nkunku, which I know I've been singing about him, but it'd probably be the same price and you're getting twice the player at least.
I want to bring up another name that hasn't really been mentioned a ton, but it's João Felix. I think he'd be the legit perfect replacement for that false nine. And you put 100 million in front of Atletico, they might bite that. And João Felix is twice the player Nunez is. And it builds off of the Diaz aspect on the left, where I don't think Nunez complements Diaz in the way that a false nine would. And especially with Salah. I think he misses playing with Bobby a lot, where he really kind of was able to thrive with a proper nine next to him. It's going to be interesting because it looks like Salah's going to be here next year. Mane isn't, with no Mane. Almost, you always had that dynamic between Mane and Salah, where did they like each other? Did they kind of not work well together? Since Mane moved into the middle and they had to link up a lot, Salah kind of dropped off the face of the earth in terms of scoring. So I think that the priority should be a nine who can bring in, who be a bit deeper. A Harry Kane
play.
The link-up play is the biggest.
Yeah. That's what Nunez doesn't have either. To be fair, he's not good at link-up play, so that's why I completely agree. He's not the right signing.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if it happened.
Harry Kane is literally the perfect player. I think if he was 3 years younger, we'd throw everything at him. I think Klopp would do it. I think his age is the only issue. I think as well, you brought up João Felix. I think that's another amazing reason why not to go after Darwin Nunez.
Yeah.
Because how much did Atleti spend on him? 140 million. 100. They spent ridiculous money, around 100 million. I'm pretty sure
it was over 100. Yeah, definitely.
So and I think Atleti fans would probably be the first to admit he hasn't lived up to what they were expecting. He has been a great talent, but for the price, they'd probably be willing to sell him at a similar price. And I think that's why you don't go after Nunez. I think we won't do it. We definitely won't do it. And it's not a Klopp signing whatsoever. So I don't think we really have to worry too much about Darwin Nunez coming to Liverpool, if we're being honest.
I do want to bring up a point, Charlie, is that this market is just bad in general. Like, this is what, you kind of have those summers where there are players that are available that could make things interesting. I don't probably have years off in the back of my mind where this is a good summer where there's a lot of big transfers and stuff, but this just feels like a market that's starved of ready-made players for decent prices. Guys like Nunez should not be 100 million. Felix isn't on the market. And Nkunku is good. He's got some errors and things missing in his game. He's be quite expensive. It's a bigger debate, I'm sure, but it lends credence to the idea that we should have been spending more in markets past when there were options that we liked, because we couldn't have predicted in the future what players would be available. And I find myself, kind of a bit underwhelmed by the options available. If Nunez is one of the best guys that's accessible, I think that spells trouble for kind of who we're trying to sign, I guess.